He whispered he was marrying someone else, and I showed up at his wedding anyway, not to crash, but to claim the ending I deserved, and to rewrite the script they thought I hadn't earned the right to finish. The invitation arrived with a bow and a warning, "Watch your heart." The date was circled in red as if fate itself had declared war on my certainty. I stood at the back of the church, heart hammered, watching him stand at the altar with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The bride glowed, the guests murmured, and I felt the room tilt as if gravity had decided to tilt in my favor, just enough to tilt him out of his own plans. Silence is heavy, but it's a truth-teller with a sharper edge than any loud confession. I waited, letting the ceremony unfold as if I were a spectator in a play I hadn't auditioned for. Weddings are supposed to be about beginnings, but this one carried the weight of endings the way autumn carries the final leaf. When the vows started to flow, I stepped forward, not to interrupt, but to insert a counter-narrative that refused to be erased, that a single presence can alter a room's energy more than a speech ever could. I walked down the aisle, not with a pushy zeal, but with a quiet, deliberate resolve. The couple saw me and froze mid-gesture. The guests leaned in, as if eavesdropping on a conversation that wasn't theirs to hear. I found his gaze and held it, not with hatred, but with a steady honesty that asked a hard question. What do you do when you've chosen a future that doesn't include the people who believed in your first one? Truth isn't a spectacle. It's a choice to show up when it would be easier to disappear. At the front, I spoke, not to embarrass, but to lay out the consequences and the boundaries of a truth too big to swallow in a single breath. I named what everyone knew, but pretended not to acknowledge. Trust isn't a line you cross once. It's a landscape you navigate daily. The room held its breath as I refused to be the antagonist in someone else's fairy tale. The bravest acts are often the simplest. Tell the truth, and let the rest unfold. I told him I wished him clarity and courage, then addressed the bride with a gentleness that surprised me. It's not a victory to win a marriage by default. It's a failure to pretend you've chosen a life you don't want. The bride's eyes widened, not with triumph, but with a dawning awareness of the path she'd stepped onto, one that required her own form of honesty. Consequences aren't punishments. They're tutors guiding you toward your real next step. The reception hall outside the church echoed with subdued music and softer conversations. Friends who had cheered for the couple now whispered about boundaries, accountability, and the messy beauty of imperfect endings. I stood at the edge of the crowd, not as a villain, but as someone who believed in a future where choices align with truth, even when they sting. Forgiveness isn't erasing the past. It's deciding what the future will tolerate. I offered a fragile, conditional form of forgiveness to the situation itself, to allow space for growth, to acknowledge the pain, to demand honesty from all sides, including myself. The ceremony's ritual began to reflect a more honest version of love, one that accepts flaws, commits to repair, and doesn't pretend that a wedding can fix a broken pattern overnight. The hardest conversations begin where the music ends. In the quiet aftermath, we navigated the unspoken questions. Who gets to redefine their boundaries? How do you protect friendships and family when two people's promises collide with reality? I didn't pretend to have all the answers, but I did have a plan. Communicate openly, set boundaries, and seek a future where the lessons of this day become the scaffolding for healthier choices, that a room full of witnesses can become a chorus of new beginnings. Guests drifted toward conversations about healing and accountability, some offering support, others quiet apologies for the discomfort their gossip had caused. I stepped outside with a clear sense of purpose, to honor what I deserved, to respect what others needed to heal, and to walk away with a stronger sense of self, one forward not in vengeance, but in intentional direction. If the ending is still being written, you hold the pen. Walking away from the ceremony, I didn't pretend the night hadn't happened. I claimed the future I wanted, healthier boundaries, renewed self-respect, and the courage to pursue a life aligned with my truth. The look on their faces, surprise, judgment, a mix of awe and apology, became a map for what not to do in love and life. I left with clarity. Sometimes showing up is the most radical act of all.